If you are new, my name is Keith, and I am your meditation teacher tonight and every Wednesday night, if you so choose to attend. And on this channel, Meditation Breaks, we look at meditation through the lens of a lot of different styles and also in a very practical manner. So something that you can apply to your actual life. It's not some, oh, that's a cool idea, but that's not going to work for me in my life. The goal is to train in meditation in a way that can be applicable to your life. So that's what we're doing here. Hey, Beverly. Hey, CJ. So if this is your first time ever meditating, don't worry, because even though our topic for today is dealing with frustration, which I'm sure everyone can relate to, we're going to start by presenting what is meditation, how does it work, how do we do it, and then we're going to do a short breathing meditation, which is generally the first step into meditation, in the practice itself. It'll be short. It'll be about 5 minutes. I'll guide us through it. It's going to be very straightforward. So don't worry if this is your first time. All right, this is going to be a great first class for you. And then after we do this kind of introduction to meditation, we're going to talk about a specific topic. That's kind of the cadence for each week. And as I mentioned before, this week's topic is about frustration. Bree, thanks for subscribing. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me. So we're going to focus on frustration, talk a little bit about it. Why does it keep cropping up? Why is it so difficult to kind of combat? And then we're going to do another short meditation that's more geared specifically towards dealing with frustration. Cool? Ask me questions. That is the benefit of me being here live. If you have any questions about something I said that doesn't make sense, or you're wondering, oh, am I understanding this correctly, or whatever, best way to get that answered is to just type in the chat, like you see some people have been doing, and I'll stop whatever I'm doing and answer it. I know sometimes questions come up afterwards, so I'll give you my email. You can always email me any questions that you have about meditation or anything. I'm not picky. You can ask me anything. Cool? Okay, so let's get started. And we're going to get started by introducing meditation 101, right? As if you have no training in it. Maybe like you just heard the word meditation. Cool. Okay. And here you are. So what is meditation? Right? Good first question. Oftentimes when we think about meditation, we immediately think about relaxing. Right? It's kind of the thing that is most, I don't know, it's like the most prevalent connotation to meditation, right? Is just kind of zoning out or relaxing. And it's a big part of it, right? Being able to use meditation to relax. But how? How does meditation relax you? This is something that often gets lost in some presentations of meditation. I think it's really important to understand why this is working. What's going on with my mind, with me, that doing this thing is helping me relax. Right? So meditation is really a learning tool. It is a technique in training your mind to become familiar with something. So think about something that you're very familiar with. There's a lot, right? Driving a car, walking, riding a bike, maybe, right? We'll take driving a car. Most people are probably pretty familiar with that, right? Now, when Toshiro, I'm glad this is your first class. Welcome. That's amazing. So driving a car. Pretty easy now, right? We can drive a car while we're like shaving or putting on makeup, or we're listening to a song, we're singing along, or talking on the. We're very capable of driving So much so that it's coming very naturally to us at this point, right? Because we've done it a lot. We've had a lot of practice driving. You could say that driving is very familiar to you, and as a result, that activity seems to come a little more naturally, right? Now, time travel back to when you didn't know how to drive. Right? First time you get in the car, you're like, what the heck are all these buttons? Here's the wheel. I know that one. Brakes over there. That's important, right? It wasn't always so second nature driving. And so what happened in between driving being very difficult and driving being second nature to you? Practice, familiarity. Everything that you have learned in your life has become easier or comes more naturally to you because you're more familiar with it. Whether that's walking, I remember when you're a little babe, you're not walking so gracefully, right? Now you walk pretty good. All things that we learn follow this cadence. And your mind, emotions, feelings, they also follow this cadence. Right? So meditation is not pulling relaxation out of thin air or something like that. Meditation is teaching you to become familiar with the relaxed you. There is a relaxed version of you that occasionally will pop up, right? We would love it to pop up all the time, and that's kind of what we're after. That's why we're here, trying to cultivate that. But it's in there. It's a very important aspect of learning meditation is that you don't have to go get it. You already have it. It's in there. Relaxation is a part of you, right? The way that meditation helps is it teaches you to become so familiar with your relaxed self that what happens? It starts to show itself without as much effort, right? So similar to driving or walking or anything, right? The more that you practice getting into this kind of relaxed self state, the easier it's going to be for it to show itself all the time, right? Now, this kind of truth about familiarization and having it result in things coming more naturally, it works both ways. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. So if you think about something like anger, right? We don't have to try to get angry. We just get angry. It happens instantaneously. There's no effort involved. Patience, on the other hand, takes effort, right? We have to try to be patient. This is not because we're some inherently angry person. We've just had a lot of practice getting annoyed. And so our mind is very familiar with getting annoyed. And so when a situation arises, our mind takes over. Our mind's like, yeah, I got this, annoyed. Right? So it kind of works both ways. And so one of the awesome benefits of learning meditation is that you start to choose what you want to be familiar with. Right now, it doesn't seem like we have a lot of choice. Our mind just kind of does whatever it wants. Worry about this, be upset about that, and we're like, okay, I guess I'll worry about that. It seems like our mind's in control, but meditation helps us start to retake control over what we're thinking about, what we're focusing on, what we become familiar with moment to moment. Cool? So that's kind of what meditation is, but how do we go about starting to train in it, right? Now, I said relaxation is a big part of meditation, and it's true because while we can use meditation to do a lot of amazing things, if our mind is agitated or upset or anxious or worried or angry or whatever, it can be hard for us to kind of have some of these like cool realizations that we can have through meditation. And so learning how to use meditation to relax, or what is kind of more formally called pacifying our mind a little bit, is the first step. So I like to use this analogy to kind of illustrate what we're going to do, and then we're going to do a little a little meditation together. If you imagine you're at a lake, it's a beautiful day. Right? You're on a little nature walk, and you come up to this lake. Oh, it's gorgeous, right? There's no wind. It's beautiful. It's not a cloud in the sky. You can see the reflection in the lake very clearly, right? If I asked you to describe it to me, you say there is some trees and the grass and a squirrel. I don't know. But what if it started to rain a little bit? What would happen to the reflection? Not as clear, right? Little ripples in the water. If the wind starts to pick up, it might make that reflection very difficult to see. We could say that the reflection is not as clear, but the reflection is still there. Even though we can't see it, it is still there. So your mind kind of operates in the same way. Your mind is, by default, very calm, very cool, collected, thinking reasonably about your problems, thinking objectively about situations that you might be in. But all of the stress and anxiety and worries and all the stuff that's clamoring for our mental attention, mental energy all day long, they're sort of like raindrops. And they're obscuring our ability to access our peacefulness. But it's there, just like the reflection. Peaceful you is always there. We just gotta work a little harder to go find it and become familiar with doing so. That way we can find it even when there's raindrops. Cool? So more formally, this is called breathing meditation, or even more formally, single-pointed concentration. We're going to focus so exclusively on one thing that all other things that are normally in our mind, they're going to fade a little bit. Sort of like if you've ever been in the zone, maybe you're working on a project at work, lose track of time, you don't hear on the noises in your home or office. Those noises are still there. They didn't disappear. But it seems as though they've faded into the background, right? Becky, I'm sorry to hear that. That sounds rough. I hope you can find some comfort in today's class. Thanks for being here. So single-pointed concentration is going, we're like really kind of honed in on something. There's no room for other things. So sometimes we do this unintentionally, but we're going to train in doing this intentionally using our breath. That's breathing meditation. And we use our breath for a very important reason, at least I think so. Your breath's always with you, right? So if you can start to associate breathing with relaxing, now you can start to use this out in your life, right? Wherever you are, whatever situation you might be in, right? Cool. So I want to do a breathing meditation now, and it's going to be short. I know what you're thinking. Meditation requires you to sit for hours on end or like retreat to a cave or something. Yeah, you don't got to do any of that, right? We just need a little bit of time and a little bit of patience and our breath. And we can learn how to use this technique, meditation, to relax and also to do a lot of other cool things. All right. So we're going to do a breathing meditation now. I'm going to guide us through it. And from an instructional standpoint, pretty straightforward. You are going to sit there and we're going to make a choice, kind of a mental choice to focus on our breathing. And then whenever you notice that your attention drifts, you're just going to be like, not right now. And you're going to bring your attention back to breathing. We're kind of just saying not right now to all those thoughts. It doesn't matter how many times you have to bring your attention back. The act of noticing when your attention drifts away from your breath and being able to bring it back, that is the practice of meditation. Okay? Cool. First and foremost, make sure you're comfy. It is not necessary that you sit cross-legged on the floor or anything like that. You can be in a chair. You can even be laying down. If you're extremely tired from a long day, maybe don't lay down because you might fall asleep, which isn't the worst thing, but when we're training in meditation, it's an active kind of thing. So just make sure you're nice and comfy, and you can go ahead and close your eyes. And I'm going to guide us through about a 5-minute breathing meditation to relax a little bit. Okay. Whenever we begin A meditation. First things first. Take a moment and check in. Ask yourself, how am I feeling right now in this moment, this exact moment? Happy, sad, tired, energetic, neutral, whatever it is. Does not matter. We're not doing anything about it. We're not analyzing it. We're just noticing. This is called mindfulness. Mindfulness is an active awareness of your own thoughts moment to moment, for the purpose of being able to respond to those thoughts skillfully. So practice this by just checking in very briefly, noticing what your mind is up to right now. And having done that, you can now make a choice. You can choose to focus single-pointedly, exclusively on your breath. Breathing in and out, gently, naturally. You do not need to take big, deep breaths. You do not need to forcefully exhale the air. Just breathe as you normally would. In and out. As you begin to relax a little bit into your chair or cushion, smooth, natural breathing, following each moment of each breath, following the air as it enters your nose, and then following the air as it exits. Single-pointedly focused on each breath. At some point, you may notice your attention drifting a little bit. Maybe your mind is trying to remind you about something that happened earlier today or something coming up later. Whenever you notice that this has happened, we can just say, not right now, to those thoughts. We'll get to them later. And then purposefully guide your focus back to breathing. You are in control of your thoughts. Breathing in, breathing out. Gently and naturally. As you begin to relax even more into your chair or cushion. Keep bringing your attention back to your breath whenever you notice that it has drifted. This process of choosing to focus single-pointedly on your breath, noticing when your attention drifts, and being able to bring your attention back to breathing, that is meditation. You are meditating right now. You are a meditator. You are training your mind. Training your mind to be happy, peaceful, to access its natural reservoir of peacefulness. And you're doing it all on your own, simply by sitting here breathing. How wonderful. So just for the next couple of moments, continue to breathe in and out gently and naturally, and just enjoy sitting here in this moment, breathing. Okay, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Relax. How we doing? How'd that go? Melissa, first class. Welcome. Hope that was relaxing. So if this was your first time, probably one of two things happened. You were like, wow, that went pretty well, or wow, that was incredibly difficult. And if you're on the end of this, that was pretty difficult, that's extremely normal, right? Why? When have you ever done this before? It's not normally we're not like, hey, I know what I'll do. I will sit here and focus only on my breath for a little while. It's not something that we generally do often. And what does that mean? Right? If we haven't really done it often, it's not very familiar to us, right? And so it takes effort, right? Remember, go back to the analogy about driving. It takes effort for us to do it, but over time, the more that we practice it, the more that we become familiar and have our mind become familiar with this is something that is beneficial to us, it'll start to flow a little more naturally. Right now, our mind is very used to doing what? Multitasking, right? We are experts at multitasking. We do it all day long. Even when we think we're not, we are. And so what we're doing here is purposefully not multitasking. And so our mind has some resistance. It's like, what the heck are you doing? We don't do this. I can think about a million things. Why am I thinking about one thing? But over time, that will change, right? You just got to become familiar with it. And then you'll be able to settle in and relax without so much effort, right? Beverly, just got rid of some tension. Glad to hear it. Cynthia, go to sleep? I'm glad it was relaxing. Oh, it made you sneeze. That's cool. So interesting, Mike, is when we're meditating, it's really one thing that's happening is we're clearing out kind of the clutter in our mind, and then there's a lot of room in there, right? So sometimes we start to notice some things, right, that are happening. In our next meditation, I'll talk a little bit about this, but sometimes we notice like how the air feels cooler when we breathe in, warmer when we breathe out. So all these things, even just noticing like, hey, it made me sneeze. Like these are very in the present moment observations, which are very good. Great. Okay. So if you have any other questions on breathing meditation or meditation in general, feel free to keep asking me. But I'm going to move on to our topic for today. And our topic for today, again, is all about frustration. Which I know is something that none of us experience multiple times a day, right? So what is frustration? I like to think of frustration as kind of like a potent form of disappointment, right? Or another way I'll sometimes phrase it is when things go differently than they should have. That's an interesting thing to associate with frustration, right? And it's one of three kind of key things I'm going to touch on as to why we generally get frustrated. And then we're going to go into some ways we can use meditation to help with that, right? So, three, and there are more, but I'm going to focus on three for time reasons. Three kind of things contributing to why frustration seems to pop up so much in our life. The first is this idea of shoulds, right? When things go differently than they should have. That word, should, is very important. Right? I don't know if you guys are to-do list people, right? What happens when you make a to-do list? Like, let's say you got a to-do list for work, right? Okay, 8 a.m. I'm going to get on the road. It takes me about 45 minutes to get to work. That'll get me there at 8:45, 15 minutes before I have to be in my desk, and plenty of time for me to go get my coffee, right? And then at 9, I will, take some time to review my email, and then at 9:30, right, we had this whole to-do list, right, of things that we're going to accomplish, right? But it's sort of a dictation of how things should go in our day. We've determined how they should go. I will get on the road at 8 o'clock, and I will get there at 8:45. And that never happens, right? Our to-do list kind of falls apart. I don't know if you've noticed, right? And Nancy, first item on the list, make a list. That way you tick something off right away. That's smart. I like that. I'm going to use that one. Right? So we have this kind of checklist of how our day should go. And then when inevitably something happens that throws that off, we get frustrated, right? Because, hey, that's not how it was supposed to go. I was supposed to get to work at 8:45, right? At a more large level, we kind of have a to-do list for our life too, right? At age whatever, I should be making X amount of money. I should have a partner, be married or whatever, right? There's kind of, even if it's subconscious, there's like this internal to-do list of things of how our life should go. And when it does not go that way, we get frustrated, right? So this relationship between should and frustration are intimate. They're very intimately linked. And one of the reasons why this is such an interesting thing to think about is because shoulds imply certainty, and in our life, things are very uncertain. And so we're kind of swimming upstream, I would say, a little bit. So this is just something to think about, right? When you are experiencing frustration, we can take a moment and think, is there a should here? Am I frustrated because things should have gone differently than they have? All right? You'd probably find 100% of the time that's true. Melissa, you get frustrated very fast. Yeah. So this, it's a very good observation. And what this goes back to is the concept of familiarization. The reason why you get frustrated fast is not because you are somebody who is kind of inherently angry or something like that. No, not at all. The reason why we all get frustrated fast is because we have spent a lot of time getting frustrated. And so our mind is used to doing this. Our mind is so familiar with being frustrated that it happens instantaneously. Now, wouldn't it be great if we did that with patience, right? If we didn't have to try so hard to be patient, right? There's no reason why we can't, right? We learned through kind of repetition to have frustration come to us very quickly. We can learn through repetition to have patience come to us very quickly as well, right? Just take some training. Cool. Great observation. Thanks for sharing. So shoulds, paying attention to is this a situation where I'm thinking something should have gone the way differently than it already has, right? Something to think about. Another kind of thing to think about regarding frustration is the relationship of frustration to self and other. And self and other is a huge concept in meditation. We talk about it a lot. If any of you have attended my class on gratitude, which I'm now realizing I haven't taught in quite some time, maybe I'll do that next week on Wednesday. So if you've taken that class that I teach on gratitude, this is a direct descendant of that teaching, right? Self and other. And the takeaway is that we treat self and other very differently. And we treat situations very differently depending on if it's happening to self or other, right? Excuse me. Frustration is a very good example of this, right? So a lot of times when we're getting frustrated, a big aspect of us being frustrated is because it's happening to us, right? Think about if you get cut off, right? You're driving, or you're on the highway, and somebody cuts you off. Where you're like, what a jerk. What the heck? What's the matter with you? Right? Get frustrated. We get annoyed, or, whatever, any word that kind of is indicating this feeling. And I would venture to bet that at some point you have cut somebody off, accidentally. And if somebody reacted like that to you, might be like, hey, sorry, it was a mistake, right? So it's a little bit of a different kind of vibe depending on which side of the coin you're on, right? Self and other, and understanding how our responses to things differ based on them is really important for dealing with frustration. And when I'm saying self, obviously we're talking about like you, the person, but the reason I brought up the gratitude class is in that class we talk about how this kind of extends to people that are close to us. Basically, self is people that we believe are important to us, our family, our kids, our parents, right? Our best friend, right? That's kind of like this group of self. And other is like everybody else, right? Which is why we, if somebody, does something to our best friend, we might get frustrated with them, right? But if that was a stranger, maybe we wouldn't really pay much attention to it. Right? So this is another thing to think about, right? We're analyzing what's happening in our mind. What is contributing to us being frustrated, to see if we can kind of glean any interesting answers, right? And then the third thing I'm going to talk about is what I was just talking about with Melissa. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Is familiarity, right? So this is the main number one reason why frustration is always there, comes so fast, right? Because we're super familiar with it. Right? And the important thing here is to recognize that you were not born that way. Right? It develops over time because you've been training and getting frustrated for a very long time, right? We've been training and getting frustrated for almost as long as we've been training in talking, right? Or walking. And it's hard to relearn how to walk, right? Because we've been doing it for so long. It's very familiar to us. But the important thing is these things are not inherent to us. You can change. You can train your mind to become familiar with anything. You do it all the time. What's the latest thing that you learned? Right? We do it all the time. We're constantly teaching our mind to become familiar with concepts, familiar with feelings, familiar with everything, right? And so we can start to dictate what we want those things to be and make them very positive if you want. Cool. So these are interesting things to keep in mind when we're getting frustrated, because they might, like I said, give us a window into some of the deeper reasons why, right? Are we kind of fighting? We think something should have happened this way. Why? Why should it have happened that way? Self and other, right? You can do a little experiment of, hey, what if my friend was in this situation? How would I react? What if a stranger was in this situation? How would I react? Right? And then familiarity, thinking about how the things in your life that you're really familiar with start to come like this, and how frustration might be one of those things, right? Okay, so that's all well and good. Now, what do we do in order to kind of use meditation to help when we're frustrated, and even kind of preventing us from getting to that boiling point of anger? Really, kind of frustration is a ramp up into anger. So we're going to talk about 2 steps. And if you've been to my anxiety class, you'll notice something. They are identical. Anxiety is kind of a form of anger, right? It's another, how long am I going to feel like this? It shouldn't be like this, right? Shouldn't, shoulds. It's kind of a form of frustration, a form of anger. And so the way that we approach it is actually quite similar. So the first thing to practice is mindfulness. And this word is very buzzwordy. I don't even like saying it sometimes because it's everywhere right now. But what mindfulness is like a little alarm, right? Like think about like a smoke alarm, right? In your home that I hope you have. When that thing goes off, it's not stopping the fire, right? It's not stopping it, but it is saying, hey, something's happening. You may want to do something about it, right? This is the technique of mindfulness, an active awareness of your thoughts. We did that in the meditation, right? It's like a little smoke alarm, right? So you can catch some negative emotions earlier on in the process. So you can catch frustration earlier on in the process. Why? Because frustration is like a fire, right? If a fire starts with one little flame, right? And if you happen to be there with a big bucket of water, you put it on the flame and you move on. Very manageable. Right? But if you do not notice that the fire is there, it spreads and it becomes harder to manage, harder to extinguish. It's the exact same thing with our negative mind states, particularly frustration. If we can catch it earlier on, it is more manageable. Part of the issue of why frustration is so brutal is that we kind of let it spread very fast, right? And then it becomes hard to manage. So recognize, this is like a key word for meditation and mindfulness. Recognition is the most important thing to start practicing. You don't have to do anything about our frustration, but we want to just notice earlier on in the process. And one of the benefits of frustration and anger is that it is pretty easy to notice when we're angry, right? Where we know. But we have to start catching it earlier on. So one suggestion I have is to set an alarm on your phone, or if you don't like alarms on your phone, like a sticky note or something. And whenever you look at this sticky note or whenever this alarm goes off, this is your mindfulness alarm. And what you're going to do is you're going to just take a moment and just check in, exactly like we did in the meditation. What is my mind up to? How am I feeling? Good? Bad? We're not doing anything about it. We're just noticing. We're becoming familiar, there's that word, we're becoming familiar with paying attention to what our mind is up to, so we can catch things like frustration earlier on in the process. Cool? There's a good, practical thing for you to do to train in mindfulness, right? And then when we start to become more adept at noticing when we're getting frustrated earlier on in the process, the next thing we're going to do is reduce its kind of strength a bit. And this really plays into 2 aspects. One, acceptance, which I talk a lot about in in the anxiety class, and then creating space. And we're gonna focus more on space today in our meditation. And just kind of a quick analogy for what I mean by space. Think about if you are looking off in the distance, you're like in kind of the open plains of the Midwest, and you're looking off in the distance and you see very dark clouds, miles and miles and miles away, right? Over you, it's sunny skies, but you can see these dark storm clouds way off in the distance. And you're seeing flashes of lightning, right? Just kind of imagine that scenario. What would you say? Whoa, did you just see that? Whoa, look at the lightning. That was cool, right? We're kind of looking at a rather violent occurrence of weather with a level of fascination, right? Whoa, cool, right? But as that storm gets closer, what happens? Not so fascinated anymore, fearful, panicked, right? So space contributes. This is an example of how physical space contributes to the potency of our feelings. Mental space is the exact same. And meditation is very good at creating mental space, right? So when we're getting frustrated with something, when we're getting annoyed with something, we're angry at somebody, they did something we didn't like, right? The storm cloud is over our head. And so if we don't try to create space, we're reacting with that level of fear and annoyance, right, of the storm cloud. And so what we want to do is just create a little bit of space, even just a little bit, so we can then look at the situation with a little bit more objectivity, a little bit more fascination, and a little bit less fear, a little bit more interest, and a little bit more interest, and a little bit less ire or anger, whatever word you want to use. Cool. I like that analogy. I think it's a good indication of what we're trying to do with meditation, right? And you can even see this with physical space too. Sometimes we're like, hey, I just need a moment, right? You walk away, right? And then what happens? 2 days later, you're like, guess it wasn't that bad. Right? So space is a huge aspect of dealing with these kind of negative mind states. Right? CJ, become an observer of our emotions. Amazing, great, well phrased. That's exactly what we want to do, because when we are an observer, or Carol says, using perspective to distance yourself through mindfulness. Yes, amazing, perfect. Right? When we're an observer, right? When we're creating distance, we naturally will look at the situation in a different way. Now, it's up to you to decide which way you think is the best for you to react, right? But what we're doing here is we want to give ourselves the opportunity to look at it from different perspectives, to then decide, make a choice, what is best for this situation. Because when we don't do that, we don't have a choice. We're reacting on our instinct to get frustrated, right? Cool? Okay, so I want to do a meditation, and this meditation will be pretty similar to what we did previously, but a little bit more focus on this topic of getting frustrated. I'll do a little bit of what's called like a contemplation, which is a form of meditation in which instead of focusing exclusively on our breath, we're focusing exclusively on a thought or idea. Don't worry too much about that. I will guide us through this. Any questions on anything we talked about before we get started with our second and final meditation for the evening? If anything comes up, feel free to ask. Okay, so make sure you're comfy again. Maybe you've realized that your computer chair that you were in is not as comfy as you once thought. Good opportunity to change to a different seating arrangement that will suit you. It does not matter. You don't have to be cross-legged on the floor or anything. Could you repeat the storm cloud analogy? Yes, Toshiro, definitely. So imagine that you're in like a field or something, and you're looking way off in the distance, miles and miles and miles away, you see storm clouds, but like miles away. It's sunny blue skies overhead, storm clouds way off in the distance, right? If we saw some lightning in those storm clouds way off in the distance, because the storm is far away, our reaction to the storm is one of kind of fascination or interest. Whoa, did you just see that lightning? Whoa, did you look at how dark those clouds are, right? You could barely see anything below it, right? There's like a level of interest, fascination there. Now, what if those storm clouds keep getting closer? What happens? And now they're over your head, and the lightning storm is over your head. We don't have the same reaction. We're fearful, right? Panicking. I got to get out of here. I'm not safe, right? So it's the same storm. It's the exact same storm, but depending on the distance between us and the storm, our reaction changes. So this analogy is a physical distance example, but mental distance works the exact same way, which is what we're doing with breathing meditation or any kind of meditation. We are creating mental space. We are creating mental distance between us and whatever storm cloud is bothering us. And then we can look at that situation with a different perspective, right? And then decide which one is the best response for me. Cool? Hopefully that helps. Okay. Let's do our second meditation. So just get nice and comfy. And it's going to start pretty similarly. Just follow along with what I'm saying. I want to guide us through this this next meditation. Oh, it was my pleasure. Thanks. I really appreciate you asking me to clarify, because chances are a lot of other people were like, "Hey, yeah, I didn't really. Yeah, can you say it again?" So I appreciate you speaking up. That's the beauty of this live kind of format. Ask me. Yeah. All right. Cool. So just go ahead and close your eyes and relax a little bit into your chair or cushion. And just take a moment, check in. We now know why we're practicing this check-in. We're training in mindfulness. We are training our mind to notice what it's doing, so that we can notice when we're getting frustrated earlier on in the process, making it easier for us to extinguish this flame of anger. So just take a moment, check in. How are you feeling right now? And having done that, we can once again turn our attention to our breath, breathing in and out gently, naturally. Smooth breathing, following each moment of our breath as the air enters and exits. Fully present, fully interested in each breath. And if you notice that your attention is being pulled in a different direction, maybe something that happened earlier today, something coming up later after this class, we can just gently say, not right now, to those thoughts. We'll get to them later. Right now, we're breathing. We're enjoying breathing. In and out. Gently and naturally. As you start to really settle in with your breath, start to become single-pointedly focused on breathing. You may notice some sensations about breathing that you hadn't really thought of too much before. Maybe you're noticing how the air feels cool temperature-wise each time you breathe in. Interesting. And that same air feels a bit warmer each time you breathe out, doesn't it? How interesting. Or maybe you're noticing how your body moves with each breath. Shoulders rising, falling. Chest expanding and contracting. Every aspect of you, an active participant, a necessary participant in each breath. Single-pointed focus, meditation, allows us to find some subtle joys in the activity. Right now, you are finding subtle joys in something as simple as breathing. How wonderful that you can enjoy something so accessible to you, your breath. And now, just for a little while, I'd like you to bring to mind an image. We're going to use our imagination. I'd like you to imagine that you are in a park. You're sitting on a bench. And a little bit in front of you is somebody blowing bubbles out of a jar. The kind that make very long, large bubbles. And each time they release one of those bubbles, and we watch it float through the sky. Just imagine it. Bubbles are a great example of something that we understand as being uncertain. There are no shoulds with bubbles. We don't watch bubbles and say, this bubble should last for 5 minutes. Or this bubble should hit the ground. We recognize and appreciate the uncertainty of bubbles. And so when we view them, we just view them. We are an observer. There are no shoulds with bubbles. our day, aspects of our life, they are like bubbles, uncertain. Our to-do lists that we make, our internal to-do lists, they don't always go as planned because things are uncertain. And so if we can learn to look at our day the way that we look at bubbles, we can alleviate some of the frustration that comes from uncertainty. We can learn to embrace the beauty of uncertainty instead of letting it get us frustrated. So just for a couple moments, continue to sit on that bench in that park and just watch the bubbles. No expectations. Just enjoying each moment, each bubble. Okay, when you're ready, you can return from the park. Cool. So this is kind of what I would consider to be a full meditation. We relax our mind and then we use that relaxed mind to think about something, right? That's kind of the cadence of meditation. We're relaxing our mind, but for a purpose. And in this purpose, we were using it to think about bubbles, right? Eddie, you like bubbles, huh? So bubbles are a cool example of something that we don't apply shoulds to. And as a result, even, we're older now and we still love bubbles. Right? So this is, I think, a good example of something you can kind of extrapolate from and think about in different situations in your life, right? Are you viewing this situation like bubbles, or are there shoulds? Are there shoulds applied to it? And at this point, maybe just observing that is enough, right? Like, hey, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that. Let me look into it more. Meditation, contemplation, all this stuff, it's an exploration. And this is a good path into exploring some of those things, right? Cool. Beverly, I'm glad you had a good time. Carol, thank you. Chiro, thank you. I'm glad you had a good experience. Beverly, my next class is next week, Wednesday. I do all of these classes on Wednesdays, the same time. I know a lot of you sign up through Eventbrite, which is awesome. If you are here and you're like, hey, I'd like to come back, you can also just come back to my YouTube channel. That's fine. You don't have to go through the Eventbrite thing, but sometimes people like to because it sends them reminders. Pat and Patrick, thank you. Pat squared. So next week, I never know what I will be focusing on, though. I think I'm going to do the gratitude class because it's been a while. It's one of my favorite to teach, and I think it's really very applicable for our lives. So I think I'll teach that one next week unless I forget. Hopefully I don't. So if you had a good experience, great. I'm glad to hear it. Come back next week. I'll hopefully be doing that gratitude class. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I saw Bree did. Thank you again for doing that. That would be awesome. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, it's helpful for me. Let's the Google algorithm that I know nothing about know that, hey, people are interested in this. That's good. And it's good for you too, because you get access to all my old videos. You get notifications when I'm going live. It's win-win. Right? And if you you're like, hey, meditation is cool, and I am very interested in learning some more about it. I do teach one-on-one classes. That's kind of like the main thing that I do. So if you're interested in that, you can email me and we can find a time that would work for us. I do it over Zoom. It's very laid back. I'm a very laid back person, and we can focus on something that is pertinent to you. Like maybe you're here for anxiety. That's how I got into meditation originally. We could focus on that. That's the kind of beauty of the one-on-one classes. So I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. It is keith@meditationbreaks.com. Email me if you're interested in a one-on-one. Email me if you have any questions on anything we talked about today or anything that comes up as you're trying to do this meditation thing on your own. I got to focus so I don't make a spelling error. Oh. Lorena, there you go. Keith@meditationbreaks.com. Did I put an extra space in there? Hopefully not. Cool. Let me just catch up. Rosa, thank you so much. Rosa, thanks for always being here. I appreciate that. Patrick, too. Carol. Mike, thanks for being here. I'm glad you had a great experience. It's awesome. I'd love to hear that. I love teaching. And honestly, I couldn't get to do it without you guys dedicating time to be here. So it means a lot to me. CJ, going to think about bubbles and storms at work tomorrow. Cool. See, this is a humans love analogies, right? This is good. That's good. It'll stick in your mind a little bit. Awesome. Toshiro, definitely come back. The gratitude class is one of my favorites. I think it's probably one of the most transformational things I've ever been taught in meditation. So hopefully you feel the same. Cool. Again, thank you guys for being here. Y'all are the best, and I'll see you next week. All right. Take care.